Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's the top of the hour now, so we'll get our presentation underway. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to talk about the North 49's e-commerce suite, and that includes Webtelligence, among a few other things. So I've got with me my colleague Etienne, who is going to do the product presentation. I'm just going to introduce the concepts a little bit through a few slides here, and I promise you there's only a couple that we have to go through, and we'll get into some live product presentation here. So with that, I am going to get going. Oh, I just do want to let you know, I am recording this session so that if you've got colleagues who weren't able to join, we'll make it available to you after the session, probably by tomorrow. And it will send out a link that will be to our YouTube channel that you can then share this with your colleagues. So let's get started. So I guess this doesn't come as a big surprise to a lot of us. The last year or so has presented us all with some interesting new challenges, and we've started to see some trends. And I think it's not just us, there's lots of people throughout the industry who are noticing this as well. And we've seen this quote by this gentleman from BDC, which is Business Development Canada. It's a think tank and consulting firm that helps small businesses, and I believe it might even be a Government of Canada entity. And he's noticed that, things aren't going to go back to the way they were even after the pandemic is done. We're starting to see some massive shifts in how people are doing business, and I think that's going to continue, and I believe that sentiment is shared by more than just us. So this is kind of what was going on even before the pandemic hit. We were starting to see a trend, even in the business-to-business market, where more and more buyers are going online to do their research, to do their buying. And look at the numbers here. You've got more than half of the purchases that folks are making in a business-to-business type environment were being done online. And now since the pandemic hit, this has only increased. I mean, look at these numbers here. You've got, they increased by 24% in the past year, and 3/4 of respondents wanted to buy online. And when you're talking about a medium-sized business, that number rises to 87%. And I think this last line here is one of the most startling and significant that we really need to pay attention to. Almost half of the people surveyed said that they changed suppliers because the people or the companies they were dealing with did not provide that online ordering capability. That should serve as a wake-up call to all of us to say, look, even though this might just be caused by the pandemic, it's probably not going to go back to the way it was before, because people are going to become accustomed to the convenience of doing things online, and that's the way they're going to want to keep doing it. So it's time to get in this game if you're not already there, and if you are there, to make sure that your online presence is delivering an experience that your customers expect. Now, we've all been exposed to, the big box guys have their online presences. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But then you look at the Amazons of the world, and we've come to expect a certain level of service that comes from those platforms. Now, we don't all have the Amazon budget to put these things out there, but you don't need the Amazon budget. So there's lots of platforms out there that do really great at business to consumer, but business to business is a different animal. There's a lot of different variables that have to be taken into account. So you need to do your homework before you go out there and settle on a platform that you want to work with. One size does not fit all, like the line says here. So do your homework. There's a lot of variables for a business to business, like, there's customer specific pricing. Every customer might have a different price. There's different products that customers can buy. They might want to use their own carrier service. So lots of different things that a lot of these sort of business to consumer platforms don't take into account or can't do particularly well. So that's when you start to look at folks like North 49. We've got a purpose-built e-commerce platform for Sage 300. Now, we've been doing work in Sage 300 for, the principals of the company have been doing work in Sage 300 for more than 30 years. And North 49 has been around for more than 15 years doing e-commerce work. And we've developed a number of products, and my colleague Etienne has been developing products for probably the past 30 years for Sage. And this goes way back to even the DOS days, but grown up through the ranks. And as Sage products have matured and gone into Windows, and now what we now know as Sage 300 Cloud, we've grown up along the way with them and kept lockstep in with what they have been doing. A few years ago, Sage bought pretty much every product that North 49 had and had us incorporate them into the Sage 300 source code. So what that really means is that we have a very deep knowledge of how to integrate a product into Sage 300, probably better than anybody out there does. So when you want a product that is deeply integrated into Sage 300, North 49 can do it better than anybody. And we do guarantee that our products are compatible with all new releases of Sage 300, probably before they even hit the street, because we are on the beta program and we make sure our products are compatible before they actually get into consumers' hands. So our suite consists of sort of three primary things. There's a customer portal, which can be deployed standalone. There's the sales rep portal, which is maybe misnamed a little bit. It's really just an internal sales staff portal. And then, of course, there's Webtelligence, which is a deeply integrated e-commerce platform for Sage 300. And so we're going to talk about each of these individually, and Etienne's going to show you demonstrations of each of these products and what their applications are, and then speak about the different nuances about how we work with Sage 300 and what that means for your business. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn that over to Etienne and let him take over the share. Etienne, are you there?
Good morning. Thank you, Peter. Yes, I'm here. We have an awful amount of ground to cover, and so I will lean to the side of giving little information, speak a lot, cover as much ground as I can, and leave room at the end of the presentation for questions, so that we can address what most folks came to see today, and then drill down to a deeper level at the end, or via a one-on-one demonstration later on. Let's start off with the customer portal, and the customer portal very typically will form part of a bigger e-commerce system also. So the bigger e-commerce system would be especially in a B2C environment, is going to incorporate at least some components of a portal where a customer can come on, check their account, pay account online, view order status, and so on. So let's kick off with the customer portal. One of the components of the customer portal is what we call Click to Pay. And Click to Pay is our ability to send an email or an invoice or a PDF to a client with a link embedded asking them for payment. And so it'll be, here I've done one in a Word document, but it really would be in any document where you can embed text. And I've put a link in here to Ronald Black, say, here is your invoice. And please pay us. And it's invoice number 61 for an amount of 233,504. And we're going to give Ronald Black a link, and all Ronald Black has to do is click that link, and that's going to take him directly to your portal for what we call Click to Pay or quick payment. As he enters that page, we are going to verify the invoice, that it's still payable, etc. So we're going to extract all of that information, show it on the screen, and he can then go ahead and pay it. These options to pay will depend on the gateway that you are running on. For this demo, we'll be running on Paya. And so it's the Paya gateway, and Paya does allow us to do ACH. And so we're going to do an ACH payment or do a credit card payment at this point. And when the user clicks there, we're going to take them off to the gateway. They're going to fill in their credit card. Let me do one here and say 134. Go ahead and pay that invoice. And the user is going to get an immediate response to that. So the user gets a receipt. This receipt is emailed out to them. You get notified as the merchant immediately via email or Slack or Microsoft Teams notifications. The user can go ahead and print a copy of this for themselves immediately. They can save a PDF of it, but a copy is also going to be emailed out to them. And this invoice is now paid. So the payment is entered directly into Sage 300. There's no other information for you to do. So, for example, if the user wants to do that again, if they click the same link again, we will call that invoice up. We will go and verify that invoice, and that invoice is no longer available for payment. It has been paid. So the data is entered directly into Sage 300. You as a merchant do not have to lift a finger. This is going to be done in the background. Let's go through to the full portal then. The portal has certain components, and just for the sake of keeping it brief, this will be your logo, your welcome message, customer registration can happen in a number of ways. There will be verification questions asked and so on. Let's go ahead and log in here as a customer. When the customer logs in, the first thing they're potentially going to be seeing is a message that you might have posted to them. This message lies in the comment section on the AR account in accounts receivable in Sage 300. So if you call up the customer in Sage 300, you enter a message there, this message is going to be displayed. When the customer clicks OK, we will feed that back to Sage 300, and the customer will not see that message again, but you will be able to see from the comment in AR that the customer has seen and acknowledged that message. And that could be anything. It's one-on-one communication. Hello, Bob, happy birthday, call us, your card's expiring, whatever you want to communicate one-on-one with the customer. The portal also has what we call a broadcast feature, which you will broadcast a broad message out to everybody logging in. That could be, you know, our COVID hours, or a change in business policy, or a change in terms and conditions, whatever you want to broadcast. And likewise, as the user logs in, we will flag that the user has seen that message and will stop seeing it until you either update or reset that message in the administration portal. Having a look at the features on here, account activity, it just really gives the customer a snapshot of their account, their billing address, their current balance, last statement, 3 years worth of history. This data is read directly from accounts receivable. And so this data will be complete and updated the moment that you deploy the portal. None of this data is stored on our server, so it does not depend on how long you've been running the software. Software is being read immediately and will be updated. We've also designed this entire portal function so that it will run well across multiple devices. So if this user is looking at this on his mobile phone, this is kind of what he'll be seeing, and you'll see that the screens are still very readable, and we've collapsed it. The menu across the top has now kind of become, you know, a slide open, and if we go home, we're going to see the home menu there. So it will work well across all devices. Every product we design, be it portal or web design, will work across whatever platform or hardware the user is going to use to view that. View transactions will do exactly that. The customer can go in and have a look at their transactions, number of transactions they want to see on a page, show all or open only. Open only is going to show only transactions with a current balance. So that gives them a statement of account as at this point. Just interesting, you'll see invoice number 61 is showing as paid here. Remember, that was invoice number 61 we paid over here. So the invoice is already being showed as paid on the VIO account, even though it's still sitting in an AR300, Sage 300 AR batch. The user can draw down and see what they want to see here, and that you control that drop-down option. So you can eliminate certain of these transaction types if you do not want the customer to see them. We can drill down into a particular document here. The customer can have a look at the copy of the document. They can print themselves a copy of the document, PDF a copy of the document, do whatever they want to do with it. Moving on from view transactions to pay account. Pay account will do pretty much what you expect it to do. Just before I hit pay account, you have the option to store credit cards. In this case, we're actually storing the credit card in Sage 300 because we have a Paya gateway here, and Paya will store. So on the accounts receivable customer, if you click the credit card tab, these are the credit cards that you'll see there. The customer has the ability to add new credit cards here. When they do, we'll add them back into Sage, so you will see them within Sage 300. They have the option to quote unquote delete. We'll never delete a credit card. But we will flag it as inactive, and once it's inactive, they won't see it here anymore. You still have access to that credit card in accounts receivable. Let's go back to pay account. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them out. I'll ask my colleague Pete to have a look at that, and I'll take a breather every once in a while and see if there's any questions that needs to be answered. When we pay an account, we can pay multiples. You see invoice number 61 is not here. So let's go ahead and pay those 3 invoices. Actually, let's go ahead and pay all that series there. So I want to pay 1,700, make a payment. The system will now ask us the options which are available. Do you want to use the credit card that's there? Do you want to add a new card? Do you want to do a check or ACH payment? And these, again, is going to be dependent on what you set up what the options are that is being offered by your gateway provider. Typically, the user has got a stored card. They're just going to say, I want to do the payment on that store card. Here is the list of what's being paid to them, and they can go ahead and make that payment. Because they are using an existing credit card, we didn't ask them for feedback there. The transaction was just simply processed. And of course, usually an email, etc., is being sent out. I have received the email already as that user. So here's the user, hello, Ronald Black. Thank you for paying these documents. There they are. You've now paid them. So the system is very interactive. It'll feedback immediately on what's going on in the system. Let's have a look at view orders. And again, remember, this is very typically a part of a broader system. So this allows you to view an order, view quotes if that's necessary. So you can view, different active future standing orders depending what you allow in your system. We can view it by order. So these are by order number, or we can view it by outstanding items on order. Here they are. Let's go back to orders. And as you would expect, the user here can drill down and look at orders, so they can take a kind of a quick click view here of an order, but they can also drill down into the order and have a look at what that order looks like internally. Go ahead and print a copy, etc. Moving on to order entry here. Order entry on the portal is a little different than what you'll find in a full suite. It is a little bit more limited in that we don't store data, but we store sufficient data to place the orders. And these orders are written directly into Sage 300. So the user can select one of his ship-to addresses from Sage 300, or he can enter an address. He can enter a PO number, a delivery date request, some sort of shipping comments, etc. And then when the user process, these options are set up in your admin portal. But let me show you 3 kind of iterations of the data you may want to show. So first of all, you may want to just show him very simple data of a product that he's going to be ordering. And as he selects that, when we selected that, we could either click the enter button or use the enter button or click search. The item is entered into the line. He can enter the quantity. If you give override on price, you'll be able to override that. Typically, of course, you'll limit that to salespeople and not to your end users. Go one step further. Let's search for another. We're going to buy a whole heap of calculators here today. Search for another calculator. And the user is going to get a calculator. What we'll then show him are the 4 additional item information lines. So he now gets more information on this item. Make sure he wants to do. He still has the same options. Go ahead and add that. And then finally, an iteration where you may want to show him images of that product. And so we'll go and order a calculator here. And now we're going to show an image. You can show multiple images, so he can click through them if he wants to. You can store these images, or you can upload them to the portal, and we will we'll add them to the portal database. So that would be it. The user is then happy. They can just go ahead and say, place that order. The order is written directly into Sage 300. So that was order number 74. A copy is going to be emailed out. They can go ahead and print a copy, etc. And because we're interacting in real time with the underlying database, we can then go back and view that order directly from our view orders here. So there's order number 74 that we've just placed with our 3 calculators on them. That briefly wraps up the portal. There is an administration portion, which I will not go to for the sake of time here, but I'll take a brief breather here and ask Peter, were there any questions right now we need to deal with?
Nothing's come through on the chat or the Q&A at the end, so I think
okay,
we're good to go.
Thanks, Pete. We'll open the mics at the end if you rather want to chat about it. So let's move on to the full e-commerce system here. When we engage in a full e-commerce system, the first phase very clearly is the design of the page. We do not confuse functionality with look and feel and workflow. So the e-commerce system is very fully functioned, but what it looks like and how you flow through that and what the user sees and what they click on, that depends on design. And so for us, design is almost the most important part of the project, because once we've done design, we can hand it over for the coders and say, here, go ahead and implement this design. We are moving towards a phase where we will have some preset up templates if the customer isn't necessarily all that particular about design, but it is important. The design needs to reflect your company. It needs to service your clients. I mean, very clearly, the web page of, Caterpillar Heavy Equipment is going to look nothing, like Victoria's Secret web page. They are different audience, different product, different company. You want to project a different image, etc. So for us, design is important. You may do your own design or employ your own designers, but we do offer that service as well. If we do that, we will set up a project. These projects are available by you to have a look at and interact with us as we go through this process. I'll show you two of these actually. Here is a fairly recent one for a company called Swagman. Swagman do bicycle racks, carry racks, etc. for outdoor sporting. And so we kind of expect their website to be, outdoor sportish. This is still within the design. This is what they will have access to when they go through. And so we can click through this page by page. They participated in the design of what this is going to look like. Another one I can show you with a perhaps a radically different view would be a company called Vicenza Design. Vicenza Design, very high-end cabinetry hardware. And so we expect their screens to look different. This is it, so more of a formal look here. And we've got, this will be a scrolling picture at the top, product highlights. What do they want to highlight? Shop by category in a nice kind of graphical way. They also have shop by category at the top here, so we'll have a look at that. And then, here's our Pinterest account, join our newsletter, go to our Facebook page, and so on. So for us, design kind of brings the whole project together. And what will it look like? What will your page look like? How will people navigate through your page? Let's go to Vicenza Design. Here is the real live Vicenza Design running now, vicenzadesigns.com. And you can see they've got the scrolling section at the top. They have our product highlights, shop by category, just as the design kind of dictated, our Pinterest account, your newsletter, and there's a whole bunch of other information about us. The design here, or the navigation, can either be through product category, so show me bath accessories, or product families, which really are what they call design families. So show me all the Archimedes designs and so on. When we drop into one of these designs, we then show them this is a category view, but it has a very strong filter on that. So they can say, I want to see only toilet paper holders, toilet bars, and toilet rings. None of this other stuff. Go ahead and filter down my design for me. Here are the products that meet that criteria. They, of course, have the search function at the top, so they can search for products. This will be another way which a typical B2C environment could operate. If they go into a product, just tons of information. So they have, description, the specifications, the care and maintenance. They've got a catalog download. They've got a towel bar installation download. They can have videos here. They've got more from Archimedes. So there's a lot of data on this page, a lot of images which they can have a look at and scroll through. But this page also represents a number of products, so they can go, I want an 18-inch bar, and that's available in these colors, and you'll see the picture kind of adapted to what I wanted there. And here is, high-end towel bar, and then they can go ahead and add that to the cart. Let's move on. Swagman Racks, another. Vicenza, by the way, is retail, so they're aiming at the retail market more. Swagman Racks is both. It's B2E, so business to consumer, but also business to business, so they will deal with both things. As we came in here, it did ask us, what do we want to do? Are we a Canadian or a US company? That'll dictate the pricing, of course, and some of the design features may be different depending on what country I choose to be in. And so this is, before I log in, this will be a very pure business to consumer kind of a website, you know, bike racks, water sports, accessories. These are just the master kind of categories they wanted to highlight, product information, and so on. And if we then go into, and there's a dealer locator, if we go into shop, let's go to pickup truck racks. And here we have kind of pickup truck stuff, and we can drill into it. And all of these pages, again, are designed to work well, regardless of the equipment that we're running them on, right? And I can go in order. If I log in, if I go ahead and log into the system, it will then reskin, if you will, based on who I am. So the product will then understand you are, you know, Ronald Black. You have a special price list, so it will swap the pricing around for my wholesale pricing, etc. The system will adapt based on who's looking at that particular product. Finally, a purely business to consumer. So this would be, you know, guys just buying stuff, again, outdoor stuff. I don't know. I kind of chose outdoor stuff here more than perhaps I should have. Pardon me. So here is a similar thing, buying equipment, being able to drill down into particular equipment, you know, multiple images, of course, possible pricing. Here they're actually opening this up to a European audience as well, so I can choose where I am, you know, EU or US. And then again, based on what I select, it will adapt the website to be what I want it to be and how I want it to read. We can go ahead and go to Magura, have a look at their original store, etc., about us and what have you. And all of this builds client loyalty. So you're looking at a website which is going to attract client loyalty, and it's going to navigate through here the way in which the client wants to navigate through here. So I think that is it for now. I think I'm just going to take a pause and open up for questions. Otherwise, I could potentially ramble on forever. So I'm going to hand back the mic to you, Peter, and ready to answer questions.
Thanks, Etienne. Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment. I'm wondering, thinking about a strictly B2B application, would we want to maybe show the TipTop site for that? Because I think that treats things like that pretty well.
Sure. Let's go have a look at TipTop Pots. So TipTop Pots has two companies, two websites. They actually split them up entirely. So we've got TipTop Canada, and you can see tiptoppots.ca at the top. And if I navigate back and go to US, they've got tiptoppotsusa.com, different kind of look and feel. So they chose to kind of break them up entirely rather than have the user choose at the top. And if we go into TipTop Canada, they very specifically aimed at keeping this website simple. It is a B2B environment, so no B2C, no consumer purchasing here at all. And so, for example, they kept the colors demure. According to them, a very large portion of their clientele will order while on site and using a phone or a tablet. And so they wanted to eliminate, you know, excessive use of graphics, even though they do have this on the front page. But the site navigates very simply. And so let me show you, for example, let's go have a look at extractors, shampoos, and polishers. And you will see here, you know, to beating this to death, it will run across whatever equipment they're using. But you will see that there's no pricing here. They've got, English and French embedded here, and they chose to be really basic about this. So the English would be the description of the product in inventory control. The French is actually what they entered in one of the additional item information fields, so they can edit that internally inside their inventory control and not maintain duplicate language files anywhere. So they kept it really simple. And of course, the price list is going to dictate the description. So if you want to put your price list in another language, once the customer logs in, we will show them the price list language or the price list descriptions. And so you could then say, this guy is Spanish speaking, we're going to give him a Spanish price, labeled price list, and then these will be in Spanish. So no information here, but what they have done is, note the amount of information that they've put up here. Because they are business to business, they want to give as much technical data on the products as they want to. So they've got all of this. They've got related products, which in their case, rather than if you bought this lamp, you want to buy that lamp, which is over here, these are the spare parts for this product. That just makes sense to the way in which they've kind of rolled this out. Documentation that they've got here, they've got brochure, parts list, etc. So, even an exploding parts list diagram where a customer can have a look at, what is in there. And you'll see immediately the difference in flavor here of how this navigates based on, Magura or a Swagman, which is, more customer facing oriented. This is way more down to business. I have no pricing options. I cannot buy. I have not logged in. The system does not know who I am, and so it's just not going to give me that. They've got videos posted here. Customers also both posted there. Let me log in, and I'll show you how the site kind of reshapes itself. Based on who I am. So I'm going to log in as a user now. The system is going to take me immediately to my account page. This is very much that portal we had earlier, except there's a few more things on here that they've added. So we've got a little bit of a flyer. Personally, I would have put in a nice color picture to that. But they've got account activity. They have view transactions, order status. They've also got a thing called reorder. And what reorder will do is it will go and look at the invoices you've issued for this customer, and it's going to show them up, and the customer can reorder the items on there. So they could go, this is this system being a little slow. We are extracting the data directly from their system here. So these are the invoices that are listed. They can open that up and say, I want to reorder that one. I want to reorder that one, and so on. So they've got a kind of a reordering schema going here. On top of that, they have what they call a quick order. So within quick order, and they've got wish lists or favorites, of course, tutorials, which they put down here. A quick order is going to allow a customer who already understands what they want to just enter it very quickly. And so they want a vacuum. And as they type in there, the system is then going to narrow down. And as they continue to type, so we type in vacuum, so vacuum, but if we go vacuum flow here, the system is going to narrow down the options to whatever contains that information. They can go ahead and select it, put the quantity in, and go ahead and processing. They did have a indicator of available quantity here. I see they've removed that. That's worthy of a conversation. Do you want to show somebody how much you've got in stock? Yes or no? But certainly they had it here and removed it. And so this is just a very quick way of kind of going through and saying, okay, I want, I don't know, one of those. I want two of them, carry on. Unit price. I am now logged in as a sales rep, so I can go ahead and change the unit price. Typically, of course, you're not going to allow your customer to do that. And so here is a we call this quick order entry or the order entry pad. They can go ahead and process orders this way very quickly. They're all aimed at how do I get my customer to navigate where they want as effectively as they want. In closing off, let's go back to our shampoos. You will see that I now I can order. It's telling me where it's available in the BC warehouse or the Ontario warehouse. In this case, it's giving me my price. I can add this to my favorites. I can add this to my cart. And likewise, if I now drill into that product, I can see all of that information. So I now have extended information I can have a look at, not just the descriptions. I have my price according to my price list, and I can do whatever I want to do. They've changed the available quantities to just saying it's available or it's not available. They've done that, I believe, according to a formula. So if there's less in stock than a number which are entered in an optional field, it will either show in stock, call for availability, or out of stock. And so we can, customize what that's going to look like. Another pause here, Pete, over to you.
Yeah, so just a couple of things, and then we do have a question and I'll get you to answer, Etienne. So with TipTop here, what they really wanted to do was they didn't want to completely close their site off to the general public. They still wanted to be a go-to source for information and then steer folks to their dealers. But you saw that you can't buy and you can't even see pricing unless you're logged in as one of their dealers. And one of the objectives in the business-to-business website, at least in our opinion, is providing multiple and easy ways for your customers to place orders. So the quick order pad is one of them. Reordering from prior invoices is another one. We've even gone so far in some customers as to provide a list of things that they have bought in the past. This is the items they bought in the past, and then order them in the order of things that they most frequently purchase to those least frequently purchased. So there's all kinds of interesting things like that that we can do to make it easy for your customers to buy. You're familiar, I'm sure, with wish lists. In a B2B environment, the concept is similar, except we might call it a private catalog or name it anything that you like. And so from that, rather than your customers having to go through the navigational structure like Etienne was showing here, maybe they just go to their own wish list or their own private catalog and buy off of that. Because oftentimes what's happening is they're just replenishing inventory and they're buying the same things over and over and over again fairly frequently. So, they could even have a standing order sitting inside of Sage and reorder from that. So the objective here is make it easy, make it fast, allow them to get their order in and get back to work as quickly as possible. And however that has to happen, we can tailor that experience for your customer. The question, Etienne, came up about, excuse me, specifically about the integration into Sage 300 inventory, and how do you allow some items on the web, other items not on the web? So, and maybe customer specific things too. Maybe you can address those two things.
Certainly, Pete. We have a multi-level approach to that. So the highest on-off switch on an item is the flag on every item called Allow on Web. If that flag in inventory control is checked on, the item is generally allowed on the web, so it will sync up and be available on the web if a customer can see it. If not, then that item is not available on the web, regardless of whether you allow a particular customer access to that product. The second layer we do via price lists. So you can have, a general retail price list with 100 items on them, and it will have a general retail price attached to it. But then you can have specific price lists underneath that. And that price list will control what that customer can see. So, for example, if you have a customer that has exclusive rights to a certain range of products, you check the product being available on the web, so they'll get synced up, and then you'll create a price list which you'll assign only to this customer, which contains those items. All the other price lists will not have those items. If the item is not on the price list, the user cannot see them. Now, you can override that functionality and turn it off, but typically that would be a good way in which you would be able to say, I have 5,000 products. Of those, I'm going to sell 4,000 on the web. So 1,000 of those, just don't allow them on the web. The other 4,000, I want permutations of who may and may not see certain products. Use the price list to control that.
Yeah, and that might apply in certain situations. Perhaps you're supplying, I don't know, let's use the Coke Pepsi example. And let's say you're a supplier for both Coke and Pepsi, but you have specific products that go only to the Coke people and certain products that go only to the Pepsi people. You can limit them by that price list. And actually, you can go so far as to have a completely different experience when a Coke guy logs in as opposed to when a Pepsi guy logs in. You'll see all the Pepsi, colors and and branding on the one side, and then you'll see all the coat colors and branding on the other side when those guys log in. So we can create a very specific and user experience depending upon who that customer is. And so maybe just to take a step back a little bit about sort of how we do things. Etienne mentioned that the customer portal actually stores no data of its own. So none of the data from Sage 300 do we ever keep on our servers. We read it live and we feed data live into Sage 300 on the customer portal side. On the web store side, or on the Webtelligence side, we do replicate data up to the web store or up into our data center so that we can have that information regardless if Sage is running in the background or not. And there's a couple of different methods of communication we use to do that. One we call Connect, that's the live read and feed of data back and forth. And then Dataport, which is the data replication tool, which also serves as a content management tool as well. So that's kind of the, in broad terms, how things happen. There's another question here. Just let me read it for a second here. So what have you shown here so far? Will you touch on the modules or software required to achieve tip-top parts type experience? Yeah, I touched on that a little bit. So Etienne, I'm not sure there's much more. So both Dataport and Connect were used on most web stores. We use both components. So again, Connect reads live, Dataport does the replication and content management. So okay, sounds like you answered that question.
Of course, on the Sage side, you know, AR, OEIC, whatever you need to run it there. On our side here, as Pete said, it is really does not happen anymore where we don't employ functionality to deal with a particular components on a website, and it's not always kind of uniform. It may be either or, depending on the need of, do we need this information live, in which case we're going to read it live, and then what will happen if you're busy making a backup or you're doing an upgrade or something goes wrong. Can the client still check out, because the objective is for you to get that order, and so we you know, this is a discussion with us and the client and say, what do we do? Because if you roll out a component which is absolutely going to require, you know, connect to your internal system, for example, before I take the order, I want to know that the guy's in good credit standing, and I want a real-time view of that. That's a very fair request, although, you know, I will make an argument that we want to take the order even if the guy's credit sucks, because then you can go back to him and say, hey, I've got your order, love to ship it to you, but you know, before I do so, can you please, you know, send me a check to settle half of your outstanding account? That way you're building clientele. It depends on how exclusive your product is. Can you afford to tell a guy to take a hike? Because, you know, he really has no option is to come back and buy from you. And TipTop might be, you know, an example. I don't think they do that, but they might be. But, you know, if you're a typical Magura client and you're looking for a brake pad for your bicycle and they tell you take a hike, you'll go buy it on Amazon. And so you need to, you know, who's my client? How do I communicate with them? If they are over credit limit, what do I want to do? And so if we employ something, look for the credit limit before we allow you to check out. And at that point, your system is down for whatever reason. We cannot get access to your system to verify credit limit. Well, then the guy's not going to check out. And so, you know, we will have this discussion. What's the critical component here? What are we trying to do here? What happens if we don't have access to this? Are we going to cost you business and money? Let's consider all of these things and build a website which achieves its goal of getting an order into your order entry, and increase your business and increase, you know, your sales and your volumes and your service to your client, which in turn is going to generate business. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to grow the business, and every decision, design, functionality, what do we employ, where do we go, all of that plays into a successful website, yes or no. And that's it's kind of the discussion I personally love to have. Have we considered everything? Let's throw your business knowledge in with our web knowledge, and let's come up with a solution that's going to be a good fit for you.
We have another question. It comes down to pricing, and of course, that's a common question we always get, and asking for ballpark, because of course I think you probably understand that it's going to be variable depending upon who the customer is and what functionality they want. But they're asking specifically about a tip-top type of experience. So now something you need to understand for tip-top is they have two separate Sage 300 companies, one US, one Canadian, which dictates that they need two web presences, two URLs, and that's the way they wanted to do it regardless. So, it's not typical that this happens. A lot of times we will just have a single company that we're accessing, so it means one web presence. So I'll speak to a single web presence type of a situation, and a single company which could have multiple entities underneath it, either by GL code or however you're maintaining it. So typically you're going to be looking at, and I'm going to give you a range here because again, it's going to be variable depending on the customer. I would say on the low end, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, and I'm going to tell you capital costs right now, there is a subscription option as well, but very generally speaking, capital cost to build a website like that, you're probably in the $30,000 to $35,000 range is going to be my guess. And then there's also a managed services component, which means we are hosting this and we are managing it. We're doing all the backups and everything that comes in with us taking care of that site, making sure it stays up and running 24/7. So managing the whole site so that the customer doesn't have to worry about it. That's typically around $635 per month. Now, if you deferred to the subscription model, you're probably looking at something more like $10,000 as a setup fee or as the initial investment, and then probably about double the monthly fee, probably a little bit more than that, just in very broad terms, just to give you a sense about what the investment is for this type of a thing. But that should get you a fairly full functional site that has, customer portal in it, B2B, possibly B2C type things, and some of the other, usual components that people like to have. So anyway, that'll get you in the budgetary ballpark. Typically, we'll want to have an engagement conversation with you and your client to make sure that we understand the full scope of what they want to do, and then we'll give you a very accurate proposal based upon that.
To add on to what Peter has said, we are moving more and more towards a subscription model for a number of reasons. One, it removes the entry barrier in terms of capital financing, especially during the times that we are now. Business generally is picking up, and certainly e-commerce business is exploding. Our good friend Jeff Bezos has made more money in the last 6 months than Canada, and so the online business is absolutely exploding. But most mid-sized businesses took that kind of initial, oh my goodness, what's happening shock, and are recovering. So sales are going up, but it is growing. And so we want to eliminate that sticker shock or that capital outlay in front, and just make it, I can sign a check for $8,000 to get this going. And then the monthly subscription fee, keep that to a point where you're really looking at this and saying, this is like 1/3 of the cost of employing a clerk to just enter orders, assuming that people are just going to line up at the door and give them to this person. And so you are getting a branch open, a store open, a method open where your clients can communicate, can place orders, can, interact with you and your store. And it's going to cost me, the equivalent of 1/3 of an employee to do that. That also becomes a very easy decision to make. So we are moving in that direction. I think, of course, we'll keep it open. It's a lot nicer for us to have a big capital income. But I think more and more our pricing structure is going to move towards, let's remove the entry barrier. Let's make it an affordable solution that's actually working for the company. Question, have we created a site for a rental company? Oh, that's a good question. Have we? I'm
I
not
don't,
immediately sure.
yeah, I can't think of one, Etienne, but it would be an interesting project. Off the top of my head, I can't think of why that would be a challenge to do.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be a little different because
It would,
you're not going to have inventory that you're selling. You're going to have inventory that might not be available for a period of time. But I think that'll
yeah.
be like a piece of cake, right? So you've
What,
got an item, an optional field, start, end date. You go and you look, and we can give you a calendar. This item, will be available at these dates or
Mhm.
not at those dates. So I
Yeah,
think it'll be an interesting project. It's not beyond the means of the software to be able to
right.
deal with.
It would just add an interesting nuance that we would have to get built into it
Hmm.
on the scheduling side of things,
Actually,
but certainly
Pete,
not.
we are currently busy. We are busy with Building Champions, right? So sorry, I forgot about that. But Building Champions is a company that provide tutors. And so you can go onto their website and book now. It's not a strict e-commerce system, but we are busy building such a kind of rental. So whether you're renting, Bob as your tutor, on Fridays, you'll be renting, Model X Tesla on Friday for a trip to Whistler. So the concept remains the same. Our understanding of what might be achieved there remains the same, and it's within our software
Yeah.
capabilities to develop such an animal.
We have another question came in. How about manufacturing companies? And yes, absolutely. There should be no reason why. I mean, again, they're providing their products to their channel of resellers who are out there, right? So
Hmm.
as long as that inventory ends up in inventory control at some point, that's where we will draw it from. And we should mention too that we have designed our systems to be open-ended, so we theoretically can link it to any ODBC compliant data source and gain access to that information and make use of that as well. But I would think in a manufacturing setup, they will ultimately end up as inventory within inventory control, which then can be available for sale on the web.
Hmm.
Hopefully I answered that question.
Just broadly speaking, and not wanting to go too technical, one of the most useful advantages of our Connect component that interacts directly within Sage is that we can make a very confident and bold statement which says, if data exists on your system, we can read and use it. In a typical e-commerce situation, you would need a data structure on the web to accommodate the data that's going to flow up and down. We don't have to do that because we may not be accommodating that data. So, for example, we have a manufacturing guide too, Pete. They're called who are the guys that manufacture the HVAC piping?
Yeah, it's Spinfinity.
Spinfinity.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what their website is, but let's see if I can find them.
Well, AccuDuct is the parent, and then Spinfinity, yeah, they do custom
Here we go.
fabrication of ductwork, custom stretches. That was an interesting project. We had to build in the ability for them to enter specification details so they could manufacture these flanges.
Yeah,
They're
so
very,
here we go. This is one of our clients, so we can go into AccuDuct, and I have no idea where I'm navigating to here now, but here you can see, I'm going to choose the material, and then I'm going to put a spin on it. And this will be saved in a data file. So if I'm logged in and I come back, I can do the same thing. They've got a request a quote function here, etc. These are manufactured, and it's very simple manufacturing. I wish I picked the right item where I could actually show that the client can input his own criteria for that. That will be entered in. The criteria is entered in as a comment line or multiple comment lines on the item in order entry, and they can set the manufacturing stage going at that point. So
and I
familiar
guess,
with that.
yeah, to Etienne's point, I mean, it's software. It's just logic. If there's data elements that we can work with and act upon, and we can instruct a computer to do something with that, meaning it's not a judgment call on somebody's part, we can make it do it. It's our software. We can make it do what you need it to do in those types of situations. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any at the moment. Any more in the Q&A or in the chat panel? I don't think so. Well, I think we've covered it. Do I have another slide here? I don't think I do. So I guess that pretty much covers it. Now we spoke about what a full e-commerce site might cost. The customer portal is a different animal altogether. Now that can be deployed as part of the larger e-commerce platform, or it can be standalone, which means that you can have it just on its own. So that's the customer self-service where they get to look at their account details online. Um, they can reprint invoices, they can pay invoices, they even have that quick order entry thing. That is quite a bit less expensive than the full e-commerce suite. And so let me just bring up my brochure here. If you bear with me, I'll load it up and then you can see what that pricing is. And you'll find this on our website as well, but let me just show it to you while we're here. If I can make my system cooperate with me, just bear with me. Sorry, just bear with me for 1 second. I'm getting it. And I'll share my screen and I'll show you this this document as soon as it loads. Sorry, everything's slow when you want it to be fast. That's just the nature of the beast, I think, when you're doing online presentations. So let me share my screen again, and I'm going to cut you off, Etienne, while I show my screen here. Where is it? Here it is. All right, hopefully everybody can see that now. So this is our brochure, and if you scroll down a little bit, you will see the pricing. Let me make that a little bit smaller. All right, hopefully that's not too small. So the click to pay on its own, this is the cost of that. And this is only if you want click to pay by itself and nothing else. That's the only thing you have to worry about. The customer portal itself, without any payments, these are annual costs, by the way, is $14.95. If you want to add on payments, then you just add the $700. And if you want us to do the stored cards, which Etienne spoke about, you add another $180. You don't have to add click to pay if you're getting payment, because as you can see here, it's included. And then if you want to add the order entry, it's $11.95. And again, these are annual costs, so you just choose which components that you want and we'll deploy those for you. There is a one-time $175 setup charge. You do require a Sage user license. So you'll need to make sure that there's one available to us, and we do recommend that we have it exclusively available for the portal so we can avoid messages to your customers like, sorry, please try again later. So that's really the only other thing. Oftentimes we will make use of optional fields, so if you have those available, that's great. Besides that, the communication is required with an IP to IP communication. We will need access to a static IP address and through your firewall. So you might need to involve your Sage 300 partner or IT folks to help facilitate that. Outside of that, that's pretty much what you're looking at. And if you have a specific application that you want to discuss about your either client or yourself, we're happy to have a conversation with you, discuss it, and figure out what the best solution is for you. And if you look at our YouTube channel, which is YouTube/North49, I believe, you will see lots of videos on the customer portal out there that talks about it. So if there are no further questions, I think we are probably good to go. Let's just have one more look here and see. I think we are good. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to speak with you soon.